A Boston police officer took a DNA test just to learn more about his family history. But when the results came back, they revealed something unimaginable. The 3 children he had raised and loved as his own, they weren't his. They belonged to someone else. And the real father, his own brother, a betrayal so deep, so shocking, it would leave an entire city in disbelief. How did this devastating secret stay hidden for so long? And what happens when a man sworn to uphold justice becomes the victim of the ultimate deception? Welcome to True Crime Excavate, your portal for gripping explorations into the world of real crime. Here, we dissect chilling cases, delve into unsolved mysteries, and recount tales of scandal and deception. From notorious cold cases to captivating courtroom battles and profiles of infamous criminals. True Crime Excavate offers a wide-ranging look at the darker side of humanity. Join us as we sift through the evidence, analyze motives, and uncover hidden truths behind the stories that keep the world captivated. Subscribe and become part of a community dedicated to unraveling mysteries and seeking justice. Stay with me, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Boston police officer Johnson Carter was a man who lived by the values of honor, integrity, and family. For over a decade, he served his community with pride, building a reputation as a devoted officer, a loving husband, and, most importantly, a dedicated father to his 3 beautiful children, Emily, Noah, and Ava. To anyone looking in from the outside, Johnson had the perfect life. A stable career, a wonderful marriage to his high school sweetheart Annabelle, and 3 kids who adored him. But what Johnson didn't know was that beneath this picture-perfect family, a devastating secret was lurking, one that would shake his very identity to its core. It all started as something simple. Johnson had always been fascinated by his family roots, often telling stories to his kids about their heritage. So when a colleague at the station mentioned taking a DNA test just for fun, Johnson decided to do the same. He ordered a kit, swabbed his cheek, and sent it off, expecting nothing more than a breakdown of his ancestry. Weeks passed, and life went on as usual. Morning coffee runs with his wife, playing catch with Noah in the backyard, helping Emily with her homework, and tucking Ava into bed at night. Then the email came, the one that would rip his world apart. Johnson sat at his desk, scrolling through the test results, until something caught his eye. His children's DNA results didn't match his. At first, he thought there had to be some mistake, a lab mix-up, a computer error, something. But the deeper he looked, the more horrifying the truth became. His DNA was nowhere in their genetic profile. Not in Emily, not in Noah, not in Ava. These weren't just unexpected results. They were impossible. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. If he wasn't their father, then who was? And that's when he saw it, a direct match. A name he knew all too well. Gerald Carter. His brother, his own flesh and blood. Johnson's heart pounded in his chest as his mind raced to make sense of the impossible. His brother, his closest confidant, his childhood best friend, was the real father of his children. But how? And more importantly, why? As shock gave way to anger, betrayal, and heartbreak, Johnson knew he couldn't ignore what he had just uncovered. He needed answers. He needed the truth. And that's exactly what he was about to find. Johnson Carter had spent his life upholding the law, believing in justice, and protecting the people of Boston. But nothing in his years as a police officer had prepared him for the personal crisis he was about to face. Johnson wasn't just a cop, he was a devoted husband to Annabelle and a loving father to their 3 children, Emily, Noah, and Ava. He worked long shifts, sometimes putting his life on the line, but it was all worth it because he had a family waiting for him at home. His world revolved around them. Family was everything. "They were Gerald's?" he murmured. Johnson's mind raced with questions that tore at his soul. How long had this been going on? Did Annabelle ever plan to tell me? Did my brother betray me? Were my entire marriage and fatherhood a lie? The weight of the discovery was unbearable. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak. They all crashed over him at once. But beyond his own pain, he couldn't ignore what this meant for the people he loved. Annabelle, his wife, the woman he had trusted with his heart. What had she done? Gerald, his brother, his closest confidant. Had he been lying to his face all these years? Emily, Noah, and Ava, the children he adored. If they weren't his by blood, did that change anything? Johnson was staring at the greatest betrayal of his life. And now he had a choice to make. Would he confront Annabelle and Gerald, or would he walk away from the family he had built? Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. Johnson Carter and his brother Gerald had always been close. Growing up in Boston, they were inseparable, 2 boys navigating childhood side by side. Johnson, the older brother, was always the protector, the responsible one. Gerald, just 2 years younger, was more reckless, more charming, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything. Even as adults, their bond remained strong. Johnson became a police officer, dedicating his life to serving and protecting. Gerald took a different path, working in finance, always chasing success, always pushing boundaries. Their lives had gone in different directions, but they were still brothers, still family. Or so Johnson thought. Looking back, there were signs, small moments he had ignored. The way Gerald and Annabelle would exchange glances during family gatherings. How Gerald was always around, always willing to help with the kids. The times Johnson worked late shifts, trusting that his wife and brother were just family, keeping each other company. He had never questioned it. Why would he? Gerald was his brother. Annabelle was his wife. But now, as he pieced together the truth, those moments took on an ominous meaning. Johnson couldn't keep it inside. He needed answers. That night, he walked into his home, his heart pounding, his mind racing. Annabelle was in the kitchen, humming as she prepared dinner, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. "I need to talk to you," Johnson said, his voice cold, controlled. Annabelle turned, sensing something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked, concern in her eyes. Johnson took a deep breath and slammed the printed DNA results on the table. "Explain this," he demanded. Annabelle's face drained of color. Her hands trembled as she picked up the paper. She knew. The truth was out. Tears welled in her eyes. "Johnson, Don't lie to me. Don't even try." He cut her off. "Tell me the truth. Is Gerald their father?" Annabelle's lip quivered, and then she nodded. At that moment, everything inside Johnson shattered. The love, the trust, the years of devotion. All of it had been built on a lie. "How long?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Tears streamed down Annabelle's face. It happened before we were married, before we even got engaged. Gerald and we were together. But I chose you, Johnson. I always chose you. I just never knew the truth about the kids until recently. Johnson's fists clenched. "You knew!"
And you still let me believe they were mine? Before Annabelle could answer, the front door creaked open.
Gerald walked in.
He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the scene. The DNA results on the table, Annabelle in tears, Johnson's burning glare locked onto him. He knew.
"So it's true," Johnson said, his voice dangerously calm. "You're the father of my kids." Gerald hesitated, then sighed. "Johnson, I never meant for this to happen." That was it. That was all he had to say. Years of loyalty, of brotherhood, of trust, destroyed. After that night, nothing was the same. Johnson moved out, unable to look at Annabelle, unable to be in the house filled with memories that now felt like a lie. The kids were confused, too young to understand the full truth, but old enough to sense the tension. Gerald tried to make amends, but how do you fix something that can never be undone? Johnson was left with an impossible decision. Could he still be a father to Emily, Noah and Ava, knowing they weren't his by blood?
Or was it too painful to stay in their lives at all?
One thing was certain, his family would never be the same again. The house was eerily silent, but Johnson Carter's heartbeat was deafening. The truth had been revealed, but now the moment of confrontation had arrived. He wasn't the father of his 3 children. His own brother, Gerald, was. Johnson's grip tightened around the printed DNA results. The proof was right there in black and white. The truth he never wanted to believe. Across the room, Annabelle stood frozen, her face pale, tears threatening to spill. And Gerald, his brother, his blood, stood by the door, guilt written all over his face. "Say it!" Johnson finally spoke, his voice eerily calm yet filled with raw pain. "I want to hear you say it." Annabelle's lips trembled. She shook her head, tears finally spilling over. She couldn't say the words. Gerald exhaled deeply, looking down at the floor before slowly lifting his gaze to meet Johnson's. "It's true." The words hit Johnson like a bullet, a truth so devastating it threatened to crush him entirely. His hands trembled as he held up the DNA papers. "You knew?" He turned to Annabelle, his voice rising. "You knew and you let me believe they were mine?" "I didn't know at first," Annabelle sobbed. "I swear, Johnson, I never meant for this to happen. I thought you were their father. I only found out recently."
Lies, deception, betrayal.
Johnson's entire world had been a lie. The woman he loved, the brother he trusted, the children he adored. Everything had been stolen from him. "And you?" Johnson turned to Gerald, his eyes burning with rage. "You're my brother. How could you do this to me?" Gerald's jaw clenched, guilt flashing across his face. "I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake. A long time ago." "A mistake?" Johnson let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You call this a mistake? You slept with my wife. You had 3 kids with her, and I raised them thinking they were mine. A mistake?"
The room grew heavy with tension. A line had been crossed that could never be erased.
Then from behind them, a small voice broke the silence. "Dad!" Johnson turned sharply. Emily, his eldest daughter, stood in the hallway. She had heard everything. Her wide, confused eyes flicked between her mother, her uncle, and the man she had always called Dad.
Johnson's chest tightened. His children. No, Gerald's children.
Emily stepped forward hesitantly. "What's going on?" Johnson swallowed hard, his heart breaking into a million pieces. How could he tell them? How could he look into their innocent eyes and say, I'm not your father." Annabelle rushed forward, kneeling in front of Emily. "Sweetheart, go back to your room, we'll talk later." But Emily didn't move. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Dad, aren't you my real father?" Johnson opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell her that DNA didn't change anything, that he was still her father, still the man who had raised her, still the man who loved her. But the pain was too raw, the betrayal too deep. He turned away. And in that moment, Johnson realized the truth had stolen everything from him. Would he fight for his family, or walk away from the life that had now become a lie? The choice was his. Chapter 5. Johnson Carter had spent his life believing that family was built on love, trust, and loyalty. But in the span of a single night, that belief was shattered. The DNA results had not only exposed a painful truth, it had redefined his entire existence. The 3 children he had raised, the woman he had loved, and the brother he had trusted, none of them were who he thought they were. For days, Johnson struggled with an impossible decision. Could he still be a father to Emily, Noah, and Ava, knowing they weren't his by blood?
Could he ever forgive Annabelle for keeping this secret?
Could he ever look at Gerald again without feeling the weight of betrayal? The pain was unbearable. Every memory, every moment of joy now felt tainted. After the confrontation, Johnson left the house, needing space and needing time to think. Annabelle tried to reach out, but he couldn't bring himself to face her. Gerald sent messages, but Johnson ignored them. The betrayal cut too deep. The hardest part? The children. Emily, Noah, and Ava still called him Dad. They still ran to him, hugged him, and looked at him with love. They didn't see the DNA result. They only saw their father. But could Johnson separate love from blood? Days turned into weeks. Johnson fought with emotions he never thought he'd face. Then one evening, he received a letter. It was from Emily. "Dad, I don't know what's happening, but I just want you to know that I love you. I don't care what the test says. You're my dad, and I don't want to lose you." Tears filled Johnson's eyes as he read her words. And in that moment he realized biology didn't define fatherhood. Love did. Yes, Gerald was their biological father, but Johnson was the man who had raised them, protected them, and loved them unconditionally. No DNA test could erase that. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. The betrayal still stung, and the wounds would take time to heal. But Johnson made a choice. He would remain in his children's lives, no matter what. He would try to rebuild himself, even if his marriage was beyond saving. And as for Gerald, forgiveness wouldn't come easily, but one day, maybe, he would find peace. Trust could be broken, families could be torn apart, but love, real love, was stronger than any betrayal. Johnson wasn't just a father because of DNA, he was a father because he chose to be.
And that choice made him stronger than any truth.
What would you do if you were in Johnson's shoes? Would you walk away, or would you fight to stay in your children's lives despite the betrayal? This is one of the most shocking family revelations imaginable, and we want to hear your thoughts.
Drop a comment below and let us know.
Should Johnson forgive Annabelle and Gerald? Does DNA really define fatherhood? Or is it about who raises and loves the child? Let's get the conversation started. Your opinion matters. And if you love deep diving into shocking true crime stories and jaw-dropping family secrets, make sure to subscribe to our channel, True Crime Excavate. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next gripping story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.